Hello there. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the Creating Mental Wealth Show. We are a couple of minutes early because, PMP. It's a trade thing. Don't judge me. But
Okay.
project management professionals, we like
Okay.
to start on time, which equals a couple of minutes early.
I
Yes.
actually thought we were still backstage and just speaking with us, but hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, right? Like, let's get it. Let's get it.
Going forward, Nolen Davis, will have to start every episode of the Creating Mental Wealth Show because of his amazing voice for radio.
Oh, why, thank you. Some people have told me I have a face for radio, and I did not believe them.
You have a face for TV, Nolen.
Right. Thank you, man. I'm just messing.
Absolutely.
I'm just messing.
Yeah, I didn't say that. I was very careful not to say he had a face for radio. I was careful. I was trying to be polite. So let me tell you guys, while we have a couple of minutes, I'll tell you who Phoenix Speaks is. I will tell you why we exist. And I have notes because y'all don't know nothing about this, but menopause. So you're welcome.
Oh, okay. Carry on.
Y'all can't, you don't get it. I get it. But I have notes for myself. So Phoenix Speaks Incorporated is an organization that is focused on proactive suicide prevention. We work and have been working since 2019 when I had a dream about a number. And let's see if Nolan's been paying attention since I met him, I don't know, not even 2 weeks ago. So what's the number that I dreamed of? Do you remember?
I
Let's
do
see.
not. I do not.
Failed the first test. Let me write that down.
I know it. Right it. You got a red ink pen because I'm ready to take all my.
It's actually purple today, but
Okay.
okay.
All right.
So
Let's go.
we started in 2019 because I had a dream of the number 2020. The nonprofit that we started is called 2020 Lives Changed, and we were incorporated in October of 2019. So when I dream of a number, like today, I dreamt of the number 777 at 7 p.m. Right? I dreamt of that a few days ago, and I said, Nolen, what are we doing? What are we doing on 7/7 at 7 p.m. Central? We got to do something because I dreamt of a number and I am, if nothing, obedient to the universe. And so what are we doing? And he's like, I don't know why or what. So here we are. We are on the Mental Wealth Show, which is a framework that we created in 2019, creating mental wealth. It's something that you can have no matter where you are on the planet. It doesn't matter if you are tracking the dollar or the yen or the little crayons that are in your kindergarten classroom. It doesn't matter. We all have the ability to create mental wealth. And we exist for that purpose, to teach mental wealth to the entire planet. And we do this philanthropically. This is the way that we get to how I met the Nolen Davis. And I know that you do know the answer to question number 2. How long ago did we meet?
Today being Monday, that would be 11 days ago. This is the day that we met.
11 days ago.
Yes.
Which all out numbers, 7-11.
Right.
If you're in Vegas, for my friends who are, here we are.
Right.
And we're joined today with a guest. And so, Nolen, I will allow you to introduce our guest for today's conversation.
So today's guest is Stuart Tomk. Stuart Tomk has a very extensive background, almost like a scientist in the field of what he does. He's known all over the world. He's been on 6,000 shows, everything from Fox to CNN, like all the big shows that you could think of, talking about what we're going to talk about today. And what we're talking about is the most important number for your health. And it's going to surprise you when we really unravel it. And it's so simple. And he's going to break it down to where a 2-year-old can understand. Stuart, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your background, sir.
Well, thank you so much, Nolen and Sherry. You're such a delight to meet. I see how you come across the interface on the show. And Nolen, I'm a super fan of yours already. But just a quick background on myself. I spent my whole life in the dietary supplement industry. I started in a health food store in Chicago, where
Chi-town, baby. Like, I just
Nolen and
want
I
to
come from.
throw that out there. Right. Go ahead.
And we compared a lot of notes on growing up in Chicago. So that was so much fun. So I started in a health food store in Chicago, but there's a very important raw food woman in Chicago who I always need to give the credit to, Karen Calabrese. Sherry, have you ever heard of her before?
I have not.
Nolen? Okay. So anyway, so she was one of the first raw food people, now that's so trendy. And so I love her so much. And she took me under her wing when I was like 16 years old. When I was, 18, I was working at the health food store, running the juice bar. And then after that, I was building the oil of oregano company. Do you remember that, Sherry, that product, the oil of oregano in the little bottle?
I do.
Right. That was such a cult health food store product. The cure is in the cupboard. So I was the right hand for Dr. Cass Ingram, and he's no longer with us, but he was an extraordinary human and a very faithful man and a great teacher. So then from there, I went to go build Nordic Naturals. I'm sure you've heard of them before, the omega-3 company, Nordic Naturals.
Mm-hmm.
I was the spokesperson and the face of Nordic Naturals. So that was such an honor to be able to educate people all over the world, even with translators in non-English speaking countries, just traveled globally. We were a global brand. And then over the last 14 months, I've helped to spearhead a Scandinavian life science company out of Norway, their expansion out of Europe into the United States of America. So that has been fantastic. See, Pam Jones just gave me a big love oregano oil.
Pam Jones. That's how I say her name all the time. So I'm just letting
So thank you. That's a winner. So anyway, I spent my whole life in the natural product industry. And then for the last, 14 months, this is since I started working more recently with Nolen, we're now expanding this. It's a Scandinavian life science company that's really pioneering test-based nutrition. Right. That's the new mega trend that Nolen and I are going to talk about, where we're moving from guest-based to test-based. We're moving away from social media influencers, right? If there are 300 million social media influencers and there are 300 million citizens, it's time to move on to something else, right? That's why we want to go from guest-based to test-based nutrition. But in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. Nolen and I are helping people test themselves to find out what their inflammatory status is and their cellular membrane. We'll dive into that deeper, but that's in a loose nutshell what we're doing.
I love that. And thank you so much for Nolen, the Nolen. Thank you for the introduction of Mr. Stewart. I have known Stewart as of like 4 minutes, or maybe 10. So know that I am, again, just being obedient and doing what feels right. I am not paid by this organization. Didn't know the name of it until a couple minutes ago. But I want to talk about the importance, and I will kind of move to Nolen first and then to you, Stewart. So I want to talk about what you know about the importance of physical health to our mental health, right? Because understanding the role of Phoenix Speaks being that of a proactive suicide prevention nonprofit organization, what is it? Do they matter? Like, I don't know what the number is, and we'll get to the mathematics of it because I love math. But talk to me, Nolen, about the importance of mental health as it applies to physical health. How do they matter?
Oh, absolutely. They're all linked together. The more physical you are, the more you can focus, the more your thoughts, like your blood flow is so many different things that's linked together. And what we have is an opportunity to help every cell in your body, even from a mental standpoint as well. So one of the shows that we're doing, because one of the announcements that I want to make is Bio Boot Camp. Bio Boot Camp is coming out for the 3rd season, and that's literally what Stewart and I is going to roll out is Bio Boot Camp. Because within our organization, we have thousands of doctors. So he's getting doctors set up. He's going to be on a lot, and we're literally going to break down on Bio Boot Camp every day a different part of the body, different case studies that we found everywhere from the Pentagon to prisons. And some of those case studies alone is literally talking about the mental health of the prisoners, the mental health of the soldiers, and what's lacking with that. And that's some of the stuff that we literally are talking about on our first week of the show. Is that right, Stewart?
Absolutely. And you asked such a beautifully penetrating question. It's so nice to meet you, Sherry. I know we only met moments ago, but you just said something that was so profound. I recently learned from one of my mentors that Plato, you said you like math, right?
I
And
do.
I couldn't be allowed into the academy because I'm not good at math. But Plato would say that only the mind can make the body sick. Have you heard this before from
I
Plato?
have. Yes.
And only the body can make the mind well.
Mm.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
to your point, and when we think of the gut brain vagus nerve
Yes.
connection, and the fact that the majority of our neurotransmitters like serotonin and norepinephrine, like the main serotonins, the main neurotransmitters rather, are made in the gut.
Yes.
That's the source of most serotonin. So when you ask what is the connection between the mind and the body, if Plato's right, and it's so prophetic, the mind can make the body sick from stress, and only the body can make the mind well. So it's very, very important. And in the area of military suicide, which is an area that I've spent many, many years working with one of the lead experts in the world on this subject, this was very interesting. In 2011, and Noel and I are going to go into this in detail on Bio Bootcamp, but just kind of a quick little taste of it.
Yep.
In 2011, in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry, they published a paper about military suicide because we were losing as many soldiers to suicide as we were in the theater of war. Now, this is an interesting paradox here because these are the most vibrant young people that were taking their lives in their early 20s. Women were included, but it was mostly men. And they were physically very, very, very active. However, their brain, their supercomputer, was actually structurally deficient in the fatty acids that make up the human brain that are required for new brain cell to brain cell connection. So when we talk about neuroplasticity and the ability to unlearn to learn new things, it's a great idea, right? Bruce Lipton, the father of epigenetics, one of my teachers, I love the guy. However, if you are deficient in the structural material of the brain, right? Like when they take these animals and they deprive them of the critical nutrients for brain development. And then we look at their lack of synaptogenesis, the neurites, where there's all that brain, what fires wires. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that the brain can make the body sick and that the body can make the brain well. We also have mind, body, and spirit. So my closing thought on that is, even though I believe in the spirit first and foremost, there's still the body, and we are still in a material existence as well. And so finally, when it comes down to it, with longevity, right? It's so mysterious when everyone's pointing to like, what's like the one thing, right? But with VO2 max, right, with that measurement of your oxygen metabolism, if that ends up being the master biomarker for longevity and health, you make an excellent point. And the other day when I talked to Nolen and he was on the track, he's like, Stuart, I can't talk to you right now. I'm on the track. I was like, wow, I wish I was on the track so I can borrow Nolen's brain and run with him around the track a little bit to motivate me to get it. And that next morning, Nolen, I listened to you, I jumped right out of bed and I started doing push-ups like you told your brother Will to do.
Let's go, baby.
I love that. Thank you so much for that explanation. And thank you for the work that you do, right? Thank you for being introduced to the Phoenix Speaks framework and audience through the Nolen Davis, that it seems as if we were supposed to meet, right? When we met 11 days ago. So I want to talk a little bit to you specifically, Stuart, around your response. So because we just met, one of the things you don't know about me is that I am the child of a soldier who fought in Vietnam and subsequently died by suicide when I was 7. So this is the why. So I didn't get to talk about my why and why I work in this space of suicide prevention. And you made a comment that a lot of the studies that were done were about mostly men. And I just want to make sure that people understand that sometimes numbers seem a certain way, right? Because we're talking about the most important number for our health. But it's also because, and I know you know this as a scientist and background in science, sometimes all we studied were men, right? So the data is what the data is. It's like it's mostly men, but did we talk to women? Do we know if women were even comfortable having conversations about their mental health so long ago, and even as effective 13 seconds ago? We're not necessarily studying equally the impact of mental health on men or women, because subsequently I lost my mom for the same reason, right? So 20 years later, because of the inability to have a conversation about mental health or suicide, and being a survivor wife, and then the mother of a child. So I love that we're doing something, again, proactively. It's the whole reason we're here. How do we create this environment where our brain is able to protect itself from itself? Yes?
Wow, it's so nice to meet you. Yes, so many of the studies that are in peer-reviewed literature, you're totally right. They're skewed. They're skewed male. They're skewed white. They're wrong. They're wrong. They're not a snapshot. The reason I'm so interested in testing red blood cells, because they're the same in every person around the entire world, and it's a proxy of systemic inflammation. And the work that Colonel Lewis and Captain Joe Hiblin did was they actually went back retrospectively. It's a very powerful story, but they were having a beer, and the psychiatrist said to the colonel, like it's the start of a weird joke, you know, it's too bad we didn't test these soldiers before they had made the decision. Absolutely. And the colonel said, well, it's I can't believe you didn't say anything to me before, because since Desert Storm, we have a repository of every single soldier that's enlisted. I didn't know that. I mean, what a weird, cool thing. So it was just that there were more men that were enlisted in 2011, to answer your specific question, than 2012. But what they looked at, they took 800 samples from different years. So it wasn't just 1 year. They're trying to reduce the conformational bias. There's bias everywhere. It's hard. Our job is to just get rid of all the bias constantly and know nothing, right? I love that. Like Socrates. So they went to 8 different years, but then they matched them by rank and by sex and by age. And so even though there were women that were in part of this, it was the majority of them just in this study happened to be men. Yeah. And what was interesting is if they saw another soldier being killed in front of them, they had a 50% increased risk of it's correlation, yes, not causation. If they had a documented history of mental health, which most 18 to 22-year-olds in the service are just too embarrassed. The system doesn't allow us to talk about these things, right? So they're underrepresented. That was 62%, I'm sorry, a 52% increased risk. With this nutrient that we're going to get to later that we can test in the blood, in the fingertip, 62% greater risk of committing suicide if you were deficient in this one biomarker. That's not on the standard blood panel. That's what the big reveal is. That's a modifiable risk factor. So you do make an excellent point. When you look at all the anti-aging literature, the National Institutes of Health, they have this thing called the Interventions Testing Program. For anyone that's interested in longevity, this is where to study. The Interventions Testing Program, they have 3 different laboratories, and they take these genetic mice that expire on command. So they live 12 or 15 months, that's it. And then they give them all these different products that everybody's hawking online, and they see if the animals live longer. Wow. So if someone says something to me, something's anti-aging, I kind of just throw up in my mouth a little bit and laugh, because I think, no, it failed, right? But to your point, the things that have worked, which interestingly, paradoxically, are drugs that come from natural compounds, metformin and rapamycin, but in the male mice, not necessarily in the female mice. So you bring up such an excellent point that it's so nuanced. And one thing I love about what Nolen said to me when we started this program, or this Omega Man, the whole idea of this segment on Bio Boot Camp is we don't know for sure. Do you like that?
I love that, actually.
We do not know for sure. In fact, when people know for sure, run for the hills.
Yes.
Because there's always so much new information. The thing that, to get back to the point, is if everyone's blood is red, or blue, and the red blood cells exactly the same. There's not going to be genetic polymorphism in your red blood cells. They're red blood cells, and they reflect the nutrients that you eat, the nutrients that you make, and the nutrients that you metabolize. So that's why it's becoming a new proxy. People were doing plasma tests like a vein puncture, and then trying to do nutrient analysis from the plasma. If you get it directly from the red blood cell, then every single person has the same percentage of nutrients in those red blood cells, or lack thereof. And again, it's correlation, not causation, but it gives you something that's completely objective, that's free of bias.
I like that. I like that. And so thank you for that. Thank you for that response. I am a self-taught person of epigenetics because I always ask this question, what about the mother, right? And we can have another conversation later.
Oh, no, yeah.
We can do that much later. Not today. It's the first time we just met.
Right. And the dad, too. They always forget the dad.
Well, yeah. Life came through. So yes, I love it. I love this. I love the excitement around this, the studies, right? I'm here to talk about the science. I'm here to talk about the why behind our struggle with mental health right now. We'll talk a little bit more about this. I guess, Nolen, you can talk to me about what does it look like? So I had the opportunity of working with Nolen at an event where we were donating our services to a women's conference summit. And I saw Nolen doing an amazing job of doing all the things. And at one point I had to ask him a question. Let's see, this is your third question, Nolen. I'm gonna tee it up for you.
First and foremost, I had no idea this was a test. I thought this was gonna be an interview. I didn't know this was like a pass or fail. But let's go.
Always a test. Sorry. It's gonna always be a test. So my question, do you remember the question I asked you? The first thing I said to you, I walked up to you and you didn't know me from any other short mushroom person that you refer to for short people. So do you remember the question I asked you when I first spoke to you?
The first question you asked me? It had to be something about, why are you so tall? Like, as you were looking up, like, Jesus. Because I remember kneeling down to mic you up, like, okay, let me get down here. You know what I mean? Like,
well played, sir. Well played, sir.
What's up? What was it? Give me a hint. So, give me a hint.
It began with how.
Oh, that's not enough.
That's a hint, though. Right?
That's absolutely not enough.
So my question, Stuart, maybe you'll remember, because maybe we got to get him some omega-3s or 6s. So we can work on this memory center. But my question to Nolen was, how can I help? Right? So in the midst of a emotionally charged situation, we respond differently based on our epigenetics, based on our nutrition status, based on all of the menopause, right? Like all of these things play a part in how we show up doing whatever it is that we're doing. Nolen's tickled. I don't know why this is.
I got some. We got to talk after this, but go ahead.
Do not, because we are live across multiple channels. So don't make any more short jokes, because I get offended, Stuart. I don't know if you noticed.
I'm really short too, as a guy.
Okay. So Nolen, work on that. All right.
He gave the thumbs up, like he was like, I'm short too. Let's go. You know what I mean?
I'm a full 5'3". Thank you very much. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what it looks like. So I met Nolen, Stuart, and I said, hey, he's like, hey, how can I connect with you? Like, I want to be a speaker, a better speaker. How do I help do the things that you're doing? So in this particular event, it's a women's summit, but I have some amazing speakers that we represent at Phoenix Speaks. One of them, Obi West, a huge mental health advocate and advocate for harassment in the military, spent a lot of time in the Army, and came out and became became the voice when it comes to military, kind of that rape culture, that sexual assault. He became an advocate. So what better way to open this women's conference than for a female, someone who was an advocate for females in the service? Obviously, now that you know my story, you understand why I found Obi doing his thing, utilizing spoken word. And I brought him to this women's conference to talk about emotional intelligence, not from a theoretical perspective, right, Nolen? He talked about, hey, here's who I am as someone who served, as an ex-husband, as a mother, as a father to a daughter. So Nolen, tell me what you remember, if anything, because now we're at question 4, and you're
Oh no, I definitely remember Obi as far as the emotional intelligence, because he gave some very tactical, strategic ways to ask questions, to go into conversations, and so some of those I literally started using like immediately. I absolutely. So I loved what I loved the spoken word he gave at first to
Mhm.
explain of he brought himself to the stage. Like I
Yeah.
remembered the whole deal. Um and what he said was, how to correctly ask questions so people are not defensive from that standpoint. And yeah, it was, I mean, it was great. It was
Awesome. Thanks
definitely
for the Phoenix Speaks plug, friend. Appreciate you.
absolutely, absolutely,
Why are we even
absolutely.
here? No, so let's talk a little bit more about this magic number. Like, talk to me about this number. How do we calculate it? How do we understand how we take our emotional intelligence and our actual, how do we add it all up? How do I know if I'm really at this state to be mentally wealthy and physically healthy?
So as we look at technology and science, everything is evolving, right? And so the evolution of supplements is here, right? We have all this AI. Everybody wants to know information. They want it fast. They want it quick. And I feel as if some of the supplements that I've used in the past or even sold in the past, you have no idea if it's working. So the magic number is omega 3s, right? And
Mhm.
so in a nutshell, you have omega 6s and you have omega 3s in your body. They should be 1 for 1. As much as 3 to 1 is safe. After it gets to 4 to 1, it's not in the safe area. And I'm going to explain why. But I want you to realize that most people are 25 to 1. Omega 6 over omega 3s. Most people. Now, the balance of what we need to do, of how to get you in balance, is so your cell can live and breathe, right? Because after 4 to 1 is inflammation, 25 to 1 is that much more inflammation. And that creates a hard surface of the cell. So it
Mhm.
can't breathe in the nutrients and minerals, and it can't exhale the waste out of the cell. So
Mhm.
all of these people are taking supplements. All of these people are thinking about trying to get it. We need turmeric. We need ashwagandha. I'm not telling you to stop
Did you
taking
say
what you're
ayahuasca?
taking.
I'm just
No,
kidding.
I
I'm
said
joking. I'm
no,
joking.
no,
That
no,
was a joke.
no. Right,
I'm
right.
a joke.
So it's all of these things that people are trying to absorb in their bodies, but
Yes.
they're at a cellular level, they can't absorb it. And
Mm.
so some of the stuff may be working, but what if I told you I could help you to maximize the benefits of whatever it is you're trying to put in your
Wow.
body, from even a hydration standpoint, from even the water, right? And so with that comes the test, to where I thought this was absolutely phenomenal, that we test you at the beginning before you start, right? You stay on the product 4 months and then we test you again. And 99% of the people in the United States fail. If you pass the test, because I hope you test better than me, because I've been failing this test. I didn't know it was a pop quiz. But if you pass the test, they give you 100% of your money back and you keep the oil, right? It's one of those situations that it's a win-win situation. So if everything is linked to omega 3s for you to absorb everything that your body needs, for your body to be so smart and so intelligent to heal itself, for it to produce everything it does, if you can't absorb it to the maximum, how are you going to have the anti-aging? How are you going to heal your body? How are you going to keep all of your organs and functions at where it needs to be? And
Mhm.
so that was the thing. And with us being, and it's really brand new here in the United States, it's
Okay.
from a company that's 20 years old, and we're in 48 other countries, and it just got here. So I've been introducing it with Stewart, and we're running with Bio Bootcamp.
I love that. Thank you so much for that answer. And I feel like you get thumbs up. If I could cue up my applause soundtrack, Yay. Good job for the Nolen. He answered one question.
Yeah, Sherry,
Right.
if I can say something, Nolan is so good at this. You're getting, he is so good at this because his job, he synthesizes information.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Very familiar. Yes. Tell me
And
more.
when you don't know as much, you are so good at crystallizing the message. I mean, just Nolen, you just perfect, right?
Thank you, sir.
Then you overthink it like I do, right? And you just keep reading every single paper. But what's so beautiful is here you come back to the biomarker.
Mm-hmm.
You come back to the red blood cells every single time. I was looking at the questions coming through, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful. Nolen didn't need to dive into the weeds that if you don't have enough omega-3, that cell membrane also has too many cholesterol crystals in it and too many saturated fats. That's going to complicate, but the reality is it's true. And we have a great follow-up, right? For the hard cell. But I love how you explain this, Nolen, because at the end of the day, whether your doctor performs this test for you or you perform it on yourself, you still need to know this number.
Absolutely.
Just like, and I'll give you an analogy that everyone who's listening to your call will know this one. Okay. When was the first time, Sherry, that you heard of vitamin D like David?
Oh, I'm going to extrapolate from my memories and say I was 7 and able to read the milk carton that said vitamin D infused or whatever the word was.
Okay, so you remember seeing it. And then when was the first time as a young adult did you see it as a supplement? Do you remember as a teenager noticing or in your early 20s?
Nah, honestly, the first time I realized that it was a supplement was when I was pregnant the first time, which is 36 years ago. So yes, it was about 36.
Now, did they test you for the vitamin D back then?
They did, absolutely.
Okay, but that wasn't a common thing at that point, was it?
No.
But they told you, do you remember what they told you? Did you need more or less?
I needed much more.
Okay. And before that, everybody was guessing.
Yeah, we just drank milk and we assumed that we had enough vitamin D based on that.
We're doing the same thing here with fish.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
We're doing the same thing with fish. We're eating fish a couple times a week, thinking we're getting enough omega-3, or we're taking 2 fish oil pills or a spoonful of cod liver oil or some krill oil, and we think that we're getting the protection of this particular nutrient. And that's where this is just where technology, I loved where you went with this, Nolen.
Yeah.
We strongly believe that in the not so distant future, every single thing that we say is going to be fact checked by ChatGPT or Grok or Perplexity. I had a young woman the other day that was listening to this whole thing. I could tell that her parents were getting it, right? She was maybe 18 or 19. And I could tell that something wasn't tracking. And I looked her right in the Zoom and I said,
You looked her right in the Zoom. Hold on, Stuart.
You like that?
I got to
use that. I looked her right in the Zoom and I said,
that's a mic drop moment. Let's just hold on a second. Hold on a second. Did you say I looked her right in the Zoom?
I did.
Okay, continue.
Because I knew where this was going. I said, so here's the prompt for ChatGPT. And she smiled. I said, I just want you to type in, how important is the omega-6 arachidonic acid / omega-3 EPA ratio? You got to get the right prompt.
That's a lot.
Right? Okay. And how important is the omega-3 index? So we both did it on my device and on her device. And then did some screen sharing to show you what the robot said. And it is a proxy for systemic inflammation. And we've all heard that inflammation is the driving force. We need inflammation, but we need the resolution of inflammation. We need inflammation to start, but we need the resolution of inflammation. And in the absence of enough omega-3, the body will make its cell membranes based on whatever fats are available.
Right.
So even if you're not eating Pam and Spam and Ding Dongs and chicken nuggets and Hoes and Krispy Kremes, everybody beats up on, they immediately say, oh, you're eating a high processed food diet. I'm talking about people that are eating avocados and nut butter and brown rice and kale 3 times a day, that we're testing their omega-3 status and it's virtually non-existent.
Right.
Not because they're not eating healthy foods, but they are not getting enough omega-3s in the foods that they are eating. So their diet is not as good as they think it is. And this is a supercomputer made out of fat. So if we're going to get back to the military suicide paper, these are soldiers that are exercising as much as anybody. They're in the body completely, but they didn't have the right structural material in the brain. So it ends up being one of the rate limiting factors. One, we like to call it one of the modifiable risk factors. But Nolen, I just want to thank you again for crystallizing it the way that you did. You just need to know this number the way that you know your cholesterol number,
Right.
the way you know your blood pressure.
And so Pam Jones just asked a question. She said, at least I saw she asked it a little bit earlier. What should the number be? The number should be omega-6s no more than 3 to 1. That's what it is. So your omega-6s, and we have the test. The other thing that I love about this is usually that when technology first comes out and evolutions are brand new, and other than AI, majority of the time things are really expensive. This is the most affordable thing that I've seen out here from a supplement standpoint. So the opportunity for you to know where you are and to take the oil that'll get you balanced is literally, I've seen so many things much more expensive that's not as natural. And speaking of natural, one other thing I want to say before I give it back to you, Sherry, is that as we talk about doctors, never before have I seen thousands of doctors and thousands of natural paths holding hands, singing Kumbaya all together. Nobody's trying to kick somebody else up under the bus. Everybody is united saying, yes, this is what I give my homeopathic patients. Yes, as a clinician, this is what I give my patients. And so it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen, for your very in-depth. I feel like we're just scratching the surface, though, right? And so today we're probably not going to have time to go into the science because I would love to. And so, Stuart, I'm gonna pass this over to you, and now you get to test. Now, there's a test question for you, and this question just came up, so there was no way that you would know it an hour ago, and I didn't know you. So I'm going to just tell you that one of the books that I'm reading right now and listening to and reading again is The Cosmic Serpent. Are you familiar with this book?
I'm writing it down right now.
Okay. So it talks about, again, I nerd out on things. And so this book specifically talks about DNA, how DNA is created and numbers and all kinds of cool things. But talk to me about, you mentioned epigenetics. And so let's talk a little bit more about epigenetics and how these studies, let's tell everybody else what epigenetics is, and then talk to us about how this research shows up. You mentioned the red blood cell is the thing that we can look at that is consistent, but talk about some of the other findings, specifically as it applies to mental health, that comes up and bubbles up as a theme from your studies of epigenetics.
Well, thank you. Wow, these are such great questions. So epi above the genetics. Mm-hmm. So there's the primacy of genetics. I'll make fun of myself. If I'm short, I'm always going to be short, and then I'm going to give the thumbs up like that. And I'm never going to be tall no matter what I do. But with epigenetics, we have genes that the environment dictates the biology. Mm-hmm. So if I want my mother's exact same health outcomes, then I can behave the exact same way that she did. And she was an amazing human being, but was chain smoking and drinking tab soda and not eating and over tanning in the tanning bed and every one of these things that you can do to kind of speed up your own aging, mm-hmm. right? And she was beautiful inside and out, but she was an example of epigenetics, mm-hmm. right? So she had her own genetics, which came from pretty good stock. But she exposed herself to a lot of oxidative stress. That's mm-hmm. really kind of the simplest way to put it. So with epigenetics, we look at the things that are above the genes, and diet is one of the things that's above the genes. Yes. And it's not, it doesn't control everything. Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. But sometimes, even the classics, they oversimplify a little bit. Okay. So one of the epigenetic measurements that I think you might find relevant for mental health here, I just did a presentation last week to a group of correctional officers on behalf of Colonel Dr. Michael Lewis, who is the lead author on the military suicide paper we were discussing earlier. He was at the State Department. I'm his director of education for the Brain Health Education Research Institute. So he sent me to do it. Mm-hmm. So I did it over Zoom. Okay. And one of the biomarkers that we're talking about here, right? And I saw your question about calculating it. You know, we can get into the way that the measurement works and what it's actually telling you. But one of the measurements is the percentage of omega-3, EPA, and DHA in your red blood cell. That's one of the measurements. The measurement that Nolen talked about, we call that the balance score. That's the balance between largely pro-inflammatory omega-6 and largely anti-inflammatory omega-3. But we give you both of them at 11 fatty acids in total. But one in particular is called the omega-3 index. And there was a feasibility study that was conducted before you do a big randomized control study in prisoners. And here's what they found. If you tested at less than 6% of your red blood cell being omega-3, and most people are 4% or less. So if you're less than 6%, which is almost everybody, you had a statistically significant chance of having a greater than 2 on what's called the IBOS, the Inmate Behavior Observational Scale. This is a perfect example of epigenetics. So we test all of the prisoners at baseline, and then the prisoners that actually have a higher level of omega-3 in them are likely to score better on the Inmate Behavior Observational Scale. For example, if you scored a -1, you're positive and pro-social. So this is used, highly reliable for tracking aggression and risk, used across correctional institutions to monitor behavior and trends and to support interventions. If you scored a 0, there's no notable behavior. 1 means non-compliant behavior. 2 is verbal hostility. I know I've been there, right? 3 is threats or aggressive gestures. 4, minor physical aggression. 5, serious physical aggression. So this is how you're going to score people. This is epigenetics in play in their behavior, in their mental health, and in their physical outward acting out and manifestations. If they were less than 6% omega-3, they were 4.3 times more likely to have an inmate behavior observational score of greater than 2. That's incredible.
Right.
That I'm just using it as just one example. And then finally, there was a meta-analysis that came out last year that showed that it's time to implement this in the community, in the family, and in the criminal justice system. So what are some examples of positive epigenetics? Okay, if you scored higher in omega-3, you had a much lower chance of having a high inmate behavior observational scale.
Question.
Yes, sure.
I have a question. Follow me. Please.
Yes, sure. Yes.
Okay, so I will tell you as a quasi-journalist, here's the question that's bubbling up in my gut, right? No pun intended, but kind of, right? So if we are using this research based on inmates, which we understand, I will say that I understand the specificity of this particular group of individuals. How do we, as non-criminal, then observed, back to the question and when we started at the very beginning, if you're only studying a specific group of individuals, which in my explanation of epigenetics, it is the things that you just could not have, right? So my skin color, for example, is something that is genetic, and as try as anyone might, I can't change that. Same thing with your example of height, right? But there's also studies of people who have ancestors who had experienced, I have to watch my words, experienced something like the Holocaust, and how this epigenetic marker came next generation, and these same types of stressors exist outside of this finite group that you're speaking of. You're talking about people who have inmate, what I wrote was inmate behavior. And so if we're only observing inmates, I'm not. My children are not. People in my family are not, and nor is most of my network. So talk to me about the broader scope of what we're speaking of epigenetically, and not so specific to inmates, because it sounds like a controlled set study Schrodinger type cat thing.
No,
So,
no, you are totally right. No, thank you very much. I want to use it as an example that was a
okay.
modifiable risk factor. But even going back to some of Bruce Lipton's work, for anyone of your guests that don't know his work the way we do, he wrote The Biology of Belief and other books. But if you remember, he drew amniotic fluid out of women that were pregnant in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And because the environment was so hostile, even inside of the womb,
Yes.
all the markers of inflammation were on full alert.
Mm-hmm.
The adhesion molecules, the insulin resistance, like every single alarm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when children like that are born, if we can get them the right nutrition that's driven on their own personal biomarkers, then, for example, someone that's born in a very, very stressful environment that may have inherently a default mode network, because you were talking about, right, what fires wires.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That's Robert Sapolsky's work, right? It's not just the week before, it's the night before, whether or not you slept, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. If people are being born, and most of us are, into an environment where, for example, there's high gestational diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's use that as an example. A paper came out 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that showed increased, statistically significant increased risk of autism from maternal gestational diabetes. Wow, because all you think about it, right? You know, I mean, they're calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, right? Why? Right? So it's very interesting here. So what are the things that you could do? Let's get back to your original question. This is where they could do what Nolen told me to do and roll out of bed and start doing push-ups in the morning to get on the track, to actually get in my body. And then at the same time, to start testing and to stop guessing, because we can, to your point, we can show a direct correlation between high omega-6, low omega-3, and an increased chances of all causes of cancer and CVD mortality.
Right.
That was published last year, the UK Biobank. Everyone should look this up. It's 500,000 people. It's a data set like we've never had before. And they're data mining that thing. And they found out the higher omega-6, lower omega-3, peer-reviewed, published in a huge medical journal, higher omega-6, lower omega-3, like our test is identifying, correlates to an increased risk in all-cause cancer and CVD mortality. So what is a positive epigenetic? If we know it's insulin resistance
Mm-hmm.
and inflammation,
Got it.
not necessarily cholesterol.
Okay.
Then we go and we look at what we call the pooled risk analysis. This is what doctors use. Age is the first. Older you get, the greater your risk of a disease. Okay, number 2, cigarette smoking. Don't do that, right? Number 3, blood pressure. You can't evade that, right? Next, cholesterol.
Philip Morris is going to be very upset with you. So just
right. Well, that's why I'm like that guy. And please don't stop smoking, the smoking guy. But then finally, the number that you get from the personal test, they've now added that below LDL cholesterol.
Mm.
That's the 5th. It's twice as predictive as LDL cholesterol. So I would say, to answer your question, from epigenetics, from movement to the right kind of Mediterranean diet. Those are perfect examples. And then, of course, when you bring all of, you had mentioned ayahuasca jokingly a minute ago when we went to the thing.
I did, yeah.
But one of the doctors that's on our team, that just got appointed to the CDC. He replaced those 17 people in the vaccine committee that just got fired by RFK. They brought in Joe Hibbelin, who's an omega-3 expert. When he left the NIH, Joe Hibbelin was working with assisted psychedelic medicine at a clinic. And he made an observation. He said to me, if you're going to be doing that stuff, you better have the right fatty acids in the brain. The brain can't be on fire if you want to go deep into the default mode network. Right? And to pull a line from Carl Jung, if you want to try to unlearn something that you learned that could be very, very, very traumatic, you want to make sure that you have a healthy inflammatory response. So I hope that answers your question of what we can do for positive epigenetics. Feed the red blood cells what they need for the healthiest possible inflammatory response, because inflammation and stress happen.
Yep. I love that. Your answer. I'm taking notes and typing in the chat. Wonderful response. Thank you so much. You passed. You got it. Yay. It was great response.
Because when we're omega men and women, we don't make up stuff. We don't say stupid stuff, but we spell it a little bit more with a little bit more oomph.
I love it. I love the oomph. I love it. I feel it. All right, so I'm gonna make a couple of things that I listened to and I heard you say. So one, I just need you to know. Again, neither of you know this because you just met me at best 11 days ago, and at best at least 40 some odd minutes ago. So we do a summer internship program every year at Phoenix Speaks. And the one that we're doing this year, ironically, is called the Decoding Jung Project. And it is this, I know, you said that, and I was like, oh
I
my
saw
word.
you put the red book.
I'm
You're like
like,
one of the only people I know that's actually read it or listened to it ever.
that part I know, except, let me give you some great news, Dirk. I did this post on LinkedIn and I said, hey, I need some interns for this Decoding Jung Red Book project. I assumed I would get 5 responses, right? I'm like, who's read this book? No psychiatrist, psychologist, medical doctors. They were like, what is the Red Book? It's the most important work ever created by Jung, in my opinion. But who am I?
Totally agree.
And I got so many responses that I had to
Oh,
like pull the like. Well, hold on. I had like 300 kids from students, excuse me, from around the planet. Like, you read the Red Book? What? Let's do it. So I love the way that if we're obedient, Mr. Nolan, and we're like, you know what? I don't know what we're going to talk about on 7/7,
At 7.
2005, which I might also 2025. Wow, time loop. 2025 at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. The Cosmic Serpent, the book that I suggested to you, Stuart, and also Nolan,
Okay.
talks a lot about everything that you just said, except in a way that I can teach these interns, right? So, hey, DNA is DNA. There are molecules and there's amino acids. Yeah, yeah, yada, yada, yada. Looks like two snakes. One looks like a yin and a yang. Yes, yes, yes. All of things are true at the same time. So, the ultimate human paradox is we can heal ourselves. We do have the
Right.
ability to put things into our body that can take us from a state of dis-ease into that of healing and health. So that's my summary from a mental wealth perspective. The mental wealth deposit for today is you can do a test, which it seems like our guests today are talking about, to determine where you are. What is your actual mental wealth number? What does this number look like? And then, hey, let's try to augment that. Another thing that we talked about this summer project is AI actually equals augmented innovation, right? The fact that
Mm,
it's artificial intelligence, when I was writing code for AT&T back in the long time ago, right? AI was called computer-based training, and then it was machine learning, and now it's AI. So my last question, before we kind of wrap up, and I'll let Stuart, you respond first, and then Nolan, you kind of, do your thing, the Nolan thing.
sure.
Talk to me a little bit about the impact of AI and the frequencies of AI to the health of the cell, specifically in those who are still in the gestational state, right? So a woman who is not is with child who is about to birth a whole human being. Tell me how your studies have found AI interacts with, engages with, and then subsequently impacts uh, the next generation of human beings.
wow. You asked such great questions. At this moment, AI is data mining everything. We're not yet there making on time, in real time recommendations. You always get the recommendation from your doctor to make sure that you're on prenatal vitamins. I mean,
Right.
that's kind of as best that it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I'm sure you've noticed that in infant baby formula, they've had to reintroduce these fatty acids, the omega DHA, omega 3, and arachidonic acid back into infant baby formula. But this is what I'm about to share with you comes from the founder of our life science company. He's 50 and he's Scandinavian, way into AI. So I'm just going to parrot, I'm going to ape what he said because it was so much better than anything I could ever say. He said, they believe that you'll have a physician's assistant on your phone. And in the not so distant future, she will say to you, we've looked at your vitamin D levels, right, from this most recent blood draw, and you're low in vitamin D. Now, especially when you're pregnant, it's going to be very, very, very important that you have adequate vitamin D levels so you can get some more sunshine between this time and this time. This is where you live. If you do take vitamin D supplements, this is what we would recommend. and that will be AI driven. We also believe A1C blood sugar. I had mentioned gestational diabetes and autism. What a modifiable risk factor. So early on, earlier than it gets detected, because it usually doesn't get detected until you have fasting glucose, and then you given an A1C test. It's usually a little bit too late. So again, your AI physician's assistant will say your fasting glucose and your A1C are getting high. I know we're with child. Let's do some more strength training if we can. Let's eat more fat and more protein and eat less of the carbohydrates, but more complex carbohydrates, and get our carbohydrates from fruits and vegetables instead of, from refined grains. And then finally, when it comes to these fatty acids, this is the next big number in lipidology: LDL, HDL, triglycerides, then omega-6, omega-3, and the omega-3 index. What's cool about this number is it's very easy to modify. So again, AI will be sampling our blood, right? When we take that, we'll be getting a little ping on the phone. Hey, it's your AI physician's assistant. And these are the modifiable risk factors. And what's beautiful about that, people that have made a lot of money based on their celebrity, they won't be relevant anymore.
The
way that they were.
Influencers won't be influencers anymore.
The way that they were, and I'll take a breath after this. All the people I follow, Ray Kurzweil, and some of the godfathers of AI. And here's what they said: AI isn't going to replace us. No, someone who uses AI will replace you. Mm-hmm. And so on Nolen's segment on his show that I get to be the sidekick for, Omega Man means we don't guess, because all the large language models is putting all the wiki information together, and the consensus going back to the red blood cell. I like a simple measurement in 6 billion people that will be the same.
I love that. I love the
idea. That's epigenetic.
I love it. Yes. And he's like, mic drop, and I'm out. Yes. I love that. Stuart's like, I did that. You're welcome, Sherry James. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right. So now we'll talk in the last 7 minutes, because from 7 p.m. till now, we got, about 7 minutes left. Nolen, take the floor. Let's talk a little bit about what do we do? How do we find you? How do we get these tests? And what's our call to action?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for having me on the show at such a short notice. Like, what are we going to do? And at first I was thinking, I was like, is she serious? Like, and I see that you're serious. And here we are on 7/7 at 7 o'clock. Last 7 minutes. I want people to actually think about where you are in your health. I know people that have swollen ankles. I know people that have inflammation all around. You have skin irritations. You have all of these things. And if you really do research on inflammation, inflammation is the root of most things that go wrong with your body. And I believe it was Time magazine that said inflammation. What did it say, Stuart? Inflammation is what?
It's the silent killer.
Is the silent killer. Right. So as we're aging, and I want people to understand why I teamed up with Stuart. Stuart and I, we met, and he was here in Houston, and some of the owners were here, and people all over the world was here in Houston. And I was lucky enough to get a backstage invite, right, because of some of the things that I've done in my past. And so when I met Stuart, it was really like my brother at first sight. Right. So we really, I was talking to somebody else, and then me and Stuart was just over there laughing. And you remember this? Did you ever go here? Because he's from Chicago. And then we created a bond. And I started thinking about some of the people that's closest to me. It's crazy, because they say Jesus even had to leave to become Jesus. Right. But some of the people that's closest to me will see that I've done different things. I've accomplished different things, and know that I'm a good guy. But when it comes to start talking about what to put in your body, they don't believe it. So now I blew the dust off of Bio Boot Camp. I got the smartest dude in the industry around the world that knew about omega-3s. And I have been blessed with the task to literally put as many tests and as much as omega-3 in the hands of people as possible to make sure that people get healthy. Now, I don't take that for granted, right? So whatever you want us to talk about on the show, you can just send me a text or email. I can talk about it on the show. As you can see, he just gave you all types of information just from the top of his head from what he knows. If we had 24 hours to do a little bit of research for him to pull it up and get the schema, we can answer any question. Again, we have thousands of doctors that is going to be on Bio Bootcamp giving us information. I'm talking about authors of books. One of the doctors, like he said, is now head of the CDC. We're talking top quality doctors that's right here, a phone call away. So I'm going to tell you a couple of different things. One, if you're serious about your health, if you got swollen ankles, and it's literally somebody I'm talking to, but if you have anything that's wrong and you want to look better, feel better, and perform better, then you need to get a test, see where your levels are, get on the oil, and it's the most affordable supplement I've ever seen. Right? Instead of being like generic Flintstone vitamins, right? And we're
Hey, I took
past.
those as a kid. Be
Right,
careful.
but I was just going to say, but we're past that stage, right? We need a little bit
I used to like
something
them too.
more.
I did.
Right, I did as well, but we're past that stage, right? So if you're looking for your health, then you need to contact me. You can text me or call me because Bio Bootcamp is launching next week, and we're putting the finishing touches on some things. We had a little bit of technical difficulties to where we couldn't launch this week. So I'm so thankful, Sherry, that you gave me the platform to launch what we have right now. But the number that you need to either call or text is 713 931 8188. That's 713-931-8188. You get two tests, one right off the bat. You get the second one 4 months later. And then you also get your first um, serving or first month's worth of oil, and that's 125. That's two lab tests that you take and you prick your finger to show you where you are. After that, the oil itself is $45 a month. I was actually in some businesses that they didn't have anything that was less than $59. For the impact that you get, for to maximize the benefits of everything that you want to take, turmeric, ashwagandha, whatever it is, seaweed, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, it's that type of situation. Now, here's what's really special because it's brand new, but brand new here. This is a 20-year company. Our stock has went up 500% in the last 15 months. We're on NASDAQ, right? This is a very special combination of elements to
I bought it at
this.
6. It's $29 today.
Is it? Boom.
Yeah, I know. I wish I would have bought more.
Right. I didn't even check it today.
Sherry, I'm so sorry. I have a 6 o'clock show. I got to run.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Stu.
Thank you so much. I'll let you finish, Nolen. Isn't he the best, Sherry? Aren't you see?
It's the Nolen Davis.
He's like, I'm seriously. I said to him, I'm voting for you and I'm following.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Stu.
Okay.
Thank
I'll
you so
talk
much.
to you later, baby.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Last thing, for the people that are looking for opportunity, for the people that have been in network marketing, this is an opportunity for you to build a team with all the elements that I just told you. The other part is for the people that are influencers, that want to be influencers and literally only want to sell the product and don't want to build a team. This can be your home as well. And if you fall in any of those categories, 713-931-8188. Thank you so much,
I
Ms.
feel
Sherry.
like I would be remiss if I didn't notice that that phone number has 3 8s in it too, because me and numbers and this whole cosmic serpent thing, I mean, we've got to pay attention. So before we wrap up, and we're at the hour, we did start a little bit early, but I want to stress the importance of understanding what your mental wealth looks like. I am not, again, not a salesperson for this product. I have never taken it. I've not taken the tests, but I am a believer. I am a believer of supporting those that I find doing the things that they're supposed to do. And Mr. Nolen Davis, when I met him, he sent me his videos from YouTube, and I found him washing the feet, doing a program that was washing the feet of autistic children. I saw a video of him shipping food to an organization. And so I just want to make sure that everyone who knows me and understands me, they know that I'm not supporting people for the sake of supporting people. I'm supporting people who are supporting people. I believe in humanity. I believe in making sure that we're doing the things that we're supposed to do. And I'm honored that the Nolen Davis took today and took my suggestion of 777 at 7 to have this conversation, because I love AI. I know the importance of AI. And I also understand that when it comes to searching for a timestamp, what better than to have this as the day that you announce Bio Bootcamp, that you have a wonderful conversation about this new product that you're representing, but also making sure that people understand that every day we've got to take a balance sheet of what are our mental wealth deposits, what are our withdrawals, and how do we make sure that our bank account is a healthy one so that we can just find things like the Nolen Davis doing amazing things for a bunch of people, and making sure that we are staying on track. So thank you so much, Mr. Davis, for this time. Thank you for your episode of the Creating Mental Wealth Show. And I know you have like a short joke. Do you have a short joke?
No, I do not. I don't understand. Is you're the third person that says the Nolen Davis, and I've never told anybody that. And then people just say the. No, I don't know where that comes from, but I'm grateful. Thank you.
I mean, I feel like you just need to own it at this point, right? Like you just got to start introducing yourself as I am the. Say you have to say it. Like as we wrap up, like. Who are you?
So I don't know if I want to say the, but I would like to say for I am Nolen Davis. Like you know what I mean? Like for I am, like with the accent and the whole night. You don't even have to speak another language. You just have an accent because nobody speaks the other language anyway. So it's just all about the accent.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much for your engagement in the chat. I want to give a special shout out to also Obi West, because amazing job at the event that Nolen and I met at, and also to William Harrison, who was able to, ironically, I can't make this up. He actually closed out this women's summit with a keynote that said, "Do you really want to be an entrepreneur?" So I would have missed it. We started with emotional intelligence and we ended on, do you want to be an entrepreneur? And then we get a chance to interview Mr. Nolen Davis. This is his program. This is his project. This is his entrepreneurial debut of this particular product. So again, everything happens on purpose. Don't miss the hints. Be obedient to your mental wealth bank account. And until then, I'll see you soon. Thank you, Nolen. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Boom. Yeah. Bye, y'all.